Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of An Enchantment of Ravens by Margret Rogerson. I did request this book from the publisher for review. So as of right now, this is a standalone YA fantasy book, and it takes place in the town of Whimsy, which is right next to the fairy courts, and is very much enmeshed in fairy culture. And our main character, Isabel, is a master of craft with a capital C, but in this world, craft is basically anything that you can create, or any art, so she's actually a master artist, and she does portraits extremely well. And in this world, the Fae are not allowed to create anything. They are not allowed to do any kind of craft. So they are obsessed with craft of all different kinds, and they seek it out. So she is very highly sought after among all of the Fae. And one day, the Autumn Fae Prince, who has not been seen outside of the Fae courts for centuries, comes to have his portrait taken by her, and everything kind of goes from there. So first off, let me just say that this book has been getting a lot of polarized, mixed reviews, and I can definitely see why. It's one of those books that's kind of like Uprooted by Naomi Novik that people either love or hate, and I kind of see why that is. So first off, I'm going to talk about the world building. The world building within this book is very atmospheric, whimsical, and eccentric, and that's what I really like about this book. So the Fae in this world are how they're traditionally kind of supposed to be. They're eccentric, they're whimsical, they're kind of malicious and can be mischievous and evil, and they're just somewhat wrong. So these Fae glamour themselves to look like the pretty traditional Fae that we're used to seeing more recently, but underneath that glamour, they are different looking. They are like almost alien looking. They have very weird eyes, and they have multi-jointed fingers, and they just look wrong to humans, but they cover that up with their glamour. So this book has sort of been compared to like Sarah J. Maas, I think because people just saw Fae and thought Sarah J. Maas Fae, but this Fae is not like her Fae at all, and I actually prefer this type of Fae. I feel like her Fae feels more like Tolkien elves in a way, and these Fae are like the much more kind of eccentric, malicious, mischievous Fae that I just really enjoy. The other element of the world building in here is that this book mostly takes place within a magical wood, magical forest, and if you don't already know, your girl loves enchanted magical forests. So a lot of these creatures and stuff and Fae creatures are different than any I've ever seen. They are kind of created out of this magical wood, and I love that element. It is so cool and so atmospheric. I really was pulled into the story in that way because it just had a lot of this like magical wood imagery and magical forest stuff that I just tend to gobble up. Along with that, obviously it has An Enchantment of Ravens, so there's a lot of like raven imagery. So this whole aesthetic, basically this cover, this whole aesthetic speaks to me on a deep emotional level. Next, I'm going to talk about the characters. Our main character of Isabel is an artist, and she's been dealing with the Fae for some time. Like I said, the Fae seek her out as a master crafter, and so she's been dealing with them for almost her entire life. So she's someone who's experienced in this, and I kind of liked that. It wasn't like somebody newly discovering the supernatural. She knows about it, she's wary of it, she is pessimistic about it, and she kind of wants nothing to do with it, and I really enjoyed that. Also, we have our Autumn Prince of Rook, and some criticisms of the story that I think are completely valid is that there is this sort of insta-love relationship going on with them. There's a very quick banter, sort of some aciness, and what you could say was insta-love, and I get that, but I sort of liked it in this case. I sort of forgave it. You know those books where you just really like a lot of elements and certain beats just really speak to you and certain themes in it just really speak to you, so you kind of forgive some other flaws? I kind of feel like that's what I did with this. If it didn't have some of those other things that I really like the atmosphere and the magical wood and whatever, then maybe I wouldn't be so quick to forgive it. But even with this, I felt like that like angsty sort of relationship, it just kind of tugged at my heartstrings a bit. And these days I don't tend to have very like visceral reactions to couples. Like I don't ship things as often as I used to. I have to go kind of few and far between. But especially towards the beginning to middle half of this book, I really enjoyed their like banter back and forth and stuff. So I really liked that. And again, he's an Autumn Prince, aesthetic, ravens, I really like it. And the other Fae were good too, because like I said, they're this mischievous Fae, a little wrong, always trying to like ensnare humans and get back at them and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just a different element than a lot of the Fae that we've been used to seeing in a lot of YA books recently. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the plot. I do think the plot is a weaker point of this story. I think that a lot of things could actually be expanded in this. This is a fairly short book. It's only about 300 pages, and so far it's not supposed to be a series of any kind, or this world is not going to continue. But there's so many elements in here that could have been expanded on that I would have really appreciated. There were different twists and turns to the plot that I would have liked them to kind of go down this road a little bit longer. I would like to see more of that. So different things were dropped in and weren't explained a ton, and it kept moving at a very fast pace, which I really liked because it made it just like easy to read. Like this is a book that I read fairly quickly because I just felt like I couldn't really put it down and I was always drawn back into it. But there's a lot of parts of this world that I would have liked more explanation for, would have liked to see more of, and since we have no promise of more, that kind of left me a little bit disappointed. So if you struggle with books that have kind of pacing issues, you might not enjoy that so much because there is a lot of it that just kind of feels rushed. I think the ending was a little rushed. Some things about certain parts of the story were a little bit too easily wrapped up, so that was a little bit disappointing. But overall, like I said, if a story just kind of speaks to you and you just are really enjoying it, then that's just sometimes stuff that you sort of overlook. So I was a little bit concerned when I finished this book because so many people more recently have been commenting that they didn't like it. So when this book was first being released and people were first getting arcs and stuff, people were having like wonderful things to say about it. Then the second wave got it and a lot of people weren't liking it. So I was thinking like, am I overlooking something? What's going on? But I think it's just one of those books that I just really like. Like it just speaks to me. It has this kind of like, you know, like darker feel to it, darker vibe. It's sort of like Uprooted. It has that magical wood. It has these like magical forest beasts that are made of the forest. Like all these things that just felt like a breath of fresh air to me. It's something that I personally haven't seen in a while. So while a lot of people were comparing this to Sarah J. Maas, I saw that actually a better comparison for it is Holly Black. I haven't read a lot of Holly Black, so I don't know, but that might tell you something if you're familiar with Holly Black, that if you like her, you might like this. So this kind of like eerie off sort of story feels very fall, just feels very magical and feels very immersive. So I just love the atmosphere of this so much and how different it felt for me that I ended up really enjoying this book, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So comment down below and let me know what you thought of An Enchantment of Ravens, and if you have any books that are similar to this, that have this magical wood flavor, that are kind of like this and Uprooted, definitely comment down below and let me know. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!